Yeah, it's really interesting that you kind of talk about creating this new language in light of all the technology that we have now. We've gotten submissions of poetry that are written in the form of programs.
Perfect.
Using words like types, like int, char, float, short, arguments
awesome.
like parameters, exit, end, all these words that kind of have this dual meaning within our sort of conventional sense of language, but then they have a whole different meaning if you have your proper indentations and your method function titles.
And the grammar
it's really
of
interesting.
Code.
Exactly.
Right? Which begs the question, can code be poetry?
Exactly. And we, as editors, struggled with that a little bit because I'm a computer science minor as one of the editors. So I saw that's what they were doing, but at this stage, I don't necessarily know that the larger audience would understand what they're talking about.
Sure.
So.
But maybe that's important.
Right.
I mean, that's what happened when James Joyce came out with Ulysses, right? Who the hell understood what he was talking about? I mean, that's a magnificent work. And then Finnegan's Wake takes it to the next level. But, I mean, maybe that's what we need, right? This new span of a kind of postmodern modernism. I don't know what you would call it, but maybe none of that's relevant. But, I mean, this idea that some of that stuff comes to you in a form that is both bracing, shocking, in some ways aesthetically pleasing, which pulls you into thinking about what that means. I mean, those are the forms that I think are relevant right now,
Right.
And I think so much of it is about us also dealing with our question of, to me, the humanity of it. Like, is there humanity to it? Because a lot of what scares us and a lot of the reaction that you were talking about earlier, like, it's either this technology or it's not all art or there's some kind of, bipolarization of all of it.
Right.
But the thing is a lot of us are afraid when it comes to technology and computer of that dehumanization process and how the code in some ways saps us and how the code itself could maybe start thinking, right? That AI idea, which is far-fetched, of course, but that idea is fascinating to us, to think that there is something more sentient and maybe more intelligent than us.
Now, when it comes to giving a literary journal an online presence, you do have some experience with that. And with all of this in mind, can you tell us a little bit about the struggles of taking a journal like that onto an online environment? What does it need to do in order to succeed on the web?
Yeah, that's, I would like to wax poetic about how, I've been part of this class since it started, so it's almost 3-4 years now, and it's been wonderful watching students frame this experience, take it out. Like a really good example is Othergate. Othergate actually went out as a sci-fi journal, and you can see it at othergate.uniblogs.org, but it goes out as a sci-fi journal, but actually they went out, Kay Bechtold in particular, with the rest of the group, went out and they got a, basically, what is it called? An interactive fiction, I think his name was Aaron Reed, and they actually embedded part of his interactive fiction in their journal. And the interactive fiction community was excited because they'd never seen a journal embed the actual experience within the pages of the journal to give context to the readers who would come to it. It's that confusion you were talking about when someone would see the code as a form of poem. And so for me, that was like, wow, that's groundbreaking because you ought to see that students have the ability now to frame this experience. Now, I'm doing a journal right now for the Shenandoah, which is a kind of nationally recognized journal.
Right.
And I come to it with real trepidation. We've talked about this in class, but to repeat it quite quickly is, I don't know if this journal will survive online. And I say that candidly, and I'll do everything I can, and I think I'm relatively good with technology, and I've thought through this stuff extensively, and I'm working on it now, but I don't know if there is a solution or if there's a formula to bring a journal online, especially an established journal, into a completely different form. And especially if you're cutting resources, if it's an idea of, we want to put it online to save money.
Yeah.
It puts you in a really difficult position. And I'll tell you in a year if I succeeded or not. And I don't know if I will. I mean, I hope I will, but I don't think it's just about me. I think it's also about the form and the medium. I don't think there's ever been a greater demand for poetry and literature. But I also don't think that there's ever been a greater disconnect between the publishing industry and what works online. And that creates real issues about how to frame something that will work. And I can't pretend to know. I understand that, but like whenever people say, I want a business model, I'm like, oh, yeah, you and 6 billion other people
Yeah.
want a business model for the web, and they haven't figured it out. Facebook can't make money. Google makes money. They're the only ones who figured it out, and it's through ads. And do you want to run your literary journal on ads?
No.
Especially on online ads, your people they'll run away.
Right. So do you feel as though it's harder to bring a journal that's previously in print onto an online environment, or do you feel like a journal, say Apropos, that's starting online, will have a better chance of success?
Well, Apropos so let's take Apropos as an example. I mean, it has a lot of benefits. It's run by students, right? You can do it as much or as little as you want, as much time as you're investing on it. It doesn't cost you money in terms of getting the site up and establishing that stuff. I mean, you guys have got, I don't know how many, over 200 submissions. You've been doing this for what, 9 weeks? There are journals out there that would be dying for it. What's your recipe? How'd you use social media to get that? I mean, that's a question that actually you guys have more experience with than me and can share on how you're doing it. Now, when you come to Shenandoah has a reader base, for example, that expects something. And oftentimes that reader base is not, the 20-somethings, right? They want text. They want paper. And if they're not getting it, they're going to want something similar online. And I think when you try and remediate the online experience for print, you oftentimes, I think, sacrifice it. I think you kill it. And that to me is the problem is, the push towards iPads for magazines and all that. This is just a last-ditch effort to remediate the online world for the publishing world that's in great travail right now. Anywhere from New York Times to the publishing industry, journalism in general, but publishing more specifically. No, publishing in general, but journalism more specifically is in a bad way right now. And that's because they're trying to remediate the web for what came before in print. And I think journals, and this is part of this class, I would hope that, and I think Othergate had that breakthrough a little bit. No, this medium is different. Treat it differently. Imagine it differently. Break out of the kind of constructs that say that this needs to be like every magazine and paper and journal you've ever read. It doesn't. It can be infinitely less or infinitely more based upon your imagination. And that goes back to the poetry. We need the poets. We need the imagination. We need the words, the visuals, the videos to still kind of understand and conceptualize the space because we haven't yet. I mean, we still haven't. I don't know who I would say who's the poet of the online world. Who's the poet who's framing this for us? Maybe it's some programmer. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's coming out in code we don't know yet. We can't read yet. But I don't know and I kind of follow this space. Maybe it's some of the cyberpunk writers of the 80s, in particular Bruce Sterling. Maybe. Maybe he's the poet. Maybe it's Cory Doctorow. But I don't know. I'm not convinced in either of those examples, frankly.
Right.